Good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm Mendez. I'm the publisher and owner of Howell News, which is the newspaper here in town, and this is the Willow Springs Voters Forum. So tonight we are going to be talking about all things Willow Springs politics. We have, to my left, candidates for Willow Springs Arc School District. To my right, we have candidates who will be seeking to represent the city of Willow Springs. Tonight's event is meant to be a casual chat between you, the voters, and your candidates. So we're going to be giving preference to questions that will be asked aloud from you as you sit here today. Each of you have an index card at your place where you may write down a question if you like. If you'd like to ask something anonymously, I do ask that you put your city of residence with the question. Or if you'd like to just raise your hand and call out, indicating preference to those questions that are being asked aloud. We are going to be live streaming tonight's event. We'll be taking the questions continuously from the live stream should they be submitted. And of course, we have some enhanced questions that have been submitted tonight. But before we do anything else, if you would all bow your heads and join me. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for this beautiful city and for everyone who sits up here offering their time and talent to make Willow Springs a better place. We praise you for the freedom to choose our leaders. Let everything we say and do tonight be for your greater glory. In your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. Okay, one little other housekeeping announcement is that there is an exit poll at every place. We're going to be conducting an exit poll this evening and publishing the results online, publishing the results in the paper. So if you'd like to participate in that exit poll, just a little bit of fun. Okay. With that, I will introduce the candidates to my left. For Willow Springs School District, we have Roger Shanks, Lori Foster Logan, Lori Foster on the ballot, Megan Jones. For Willow Springs Mayor, we have Kim Rich. As you can see, we have an empty chair. Our candidate for Mayor, Adam Webb, is at fire call in Greenville. He's been there for 5 hours. When I heard from him last, it was only 50% containment. Don't need to see him this evening. For Willow Springs Aldermen, we have a contested race between Brian Hogan at the end and Luke Bartow. Mike Tooley is also running uncontested for Alderman seat. He is not here this evening. With that, we are going to be getting started with some opening statements for the candidates. We're going to start with Willow Springs School District candidates. Megan Jones has drawn the short straw. She has 3 minutes. And candidates, I'm going to be really strict on enforcing times. So, if you would please.
Do I need to stand or is it okay to sit?
You may remain seated if you have.
I'm Megan.
I will stand when you have 10 seconds left of your time, just to give you a visual cue. Okay.
I'm Megan Jones. I graduated from Willow Springs and I have 3 children that go to Willow. My son graduates this year and then I have 2 in elementary. I'm a nurse practitioner. I got my master's degree from the University of Arkansas. And my goal is to just make sure that we're retaining very good teachers and staff members, make it a good place for our students, give them the best education that we can give them so that they can go on and be productive in society and give back to a community that's so giving to them and to us. So that's my goal.
Okay, so thank you so much. Proceeding in filing order, Roger Shanks, you go next.
Okay.
3 minutes.
My name is Roger Shanks, and I too graduated from Willow Springs, and it's been a long time, 1985. And I have 2 daughters that are in school. One's a senior and one's in 6th grade. And like Megan, I just want to make sure that we retain good teachers, and I want to help prepare our students for the future. There's a lot facing them nowadays, a lot of new things that are thrown at them all the time. And I want to make sure they're prepared academically and just emotionally prepared for it. And we also need to work on the budget for the school, the finances, to keep a good steady hand on that. I've ran a business for many years, so I have a little bit of knowledge on that. And I just want to be involved and to help out. That's about all I have.
Thank you.
All right.
Lori, 3 minutes, please.
Hi, I'm Lori Foster. I am also a graduate of Willow Springs High School. I graduated in 1992.
After graduation, I went off to college and spent a couple years at a 2-year school in Union, Missouri, where I played basketball. I said I major in basketball instead of academics because maybe that wasn't my priority at that point in life. And then I went on and spent roughly 28 years in corporate jobs, working for companies like Bristol Myers Squibb, Mead Johnson Nutrition. I worked for an oil and gas company in southern Indiana, all about continuous improvement, refining operations, running budgets, running multi-million-dollar projects. I ran projects in excess of $50 million projects, and then I worked for Ernst & Young, which is a global consulting firm, before I relocated back here several years ago and bought Pizza Americana a year and a half ago. So as an employer in the community, I feel like that it's really important that we actually have students that come out of Willow Springs High School, because 40% plus of the students that are graduating are going to full-time employment when they graduate. I absolutely think we need to prepare our students that need to go to college and want to go to college and have that opportunity, and we really need to set the bar pretty high for their education coming out of Willow. I also believe that it's important that we do get great educators that believe in multifaceted education from Willow, and encourage those students to achieve greater goals that they might have in life. And being an employer of mostly high school students, I have a lot of graduates from Willow that are employed, but I have high school students. I've seen the gamut of what the education that they've experienced. And I do feel like that there's a strong opportunity to continue to improve that. And I really want to be a valuable member of the community, but use my diverse background and provide some input to the school board issues, which are the budget, the teacher retention, and quite honestly, the students as well. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. We're going to move on to candidates for the City of Willow Springs now. Kim, you have the first opportunity to give your opening statement. Go ahead, Kim.
I'll stand up. As she said, my name is Kim Rich, and I'm running for mayor. Just a few quick things about myself before I get into what I really want to talk about. I grew up on a dairy farm in Texas County. I graduated from MSU in Springfield, joined the Army, lived away for a few years, and then came back. In 2001, I started the Howell County News, and I worked there for quite a few years. But in 2004, the City of Willow Springs owned a very large building. They had taken a big risk to purchase that building. And there were several of us within the community who wanted to make sure that that was successful. So we started meeting at Hillbilly Junction for breakfast. We would bounce ideas and visit, and we tried to do that as often as we could. Pretty soon, we got a good bite. We had a company that wanted to come down and look at the equipment. Then they wanted to come and actually look at the facility. So when they were bringing their team down, we rallied ours. We made a homemade meal, and they met with former employees, members of the faith community, the business community, representatives from the school, and representatives from the city. We sat and visited for a while, and as we were wrapping up, the president of Jasper Engines said, we can buy a building anywhere. What we want is a community, and this is what you've shown us today. A few years later, I was mayor of Willow Springs. In 2015 to 2017, we had a few opportunities to form partnerships with private development that brought us Loves, that brought us Tractor Supply. During this term on City Council, we had the opportunity to partner with the Willow Springs Community Foundation that saved a very large chunk of our downtown. I can't take credit for any of this, but I can say that I've helped provide cooperative leadership that has gotten us some of these things and gotten us to where we are today. I hope to continue to provide that leadership in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to candidates for Aldermen, we're going to be proceeding in filing order. Brian, 3 minutes.
I'm Brian Hogan. I am running for Ward 1 Alderman. I grew up in Mountain View, but I actually have lived in Willow Springs most of my adult life. I worked locally. I actually worked at SRC before it became Jasper Engines. and then I went to work for the city, left and then came back. I worked, I've got 30 plus years working for city governments in the police department. But I've worked here in Willow Springs for 20 years. I retired in May of 22 as the police chief. Also, I guess I am the last elected city marshal that this town will have. But I know I had some notes and I forgot what I wanted to say. Anyway, as the police chief, I did attend all city council meetings. I've interacted with the city employees. I'm pretty familiar with the city here, and how it runs. So that's all I have for now.
Thank you so much. We have 3 minutes, sir.
Awesome. All right, my name is Luke Bartow. I'm the owner operator of Bartow Ace Farm and Home in Mountain Grove. I also just opened up a new store, an Ace Hardware in Ava, Missouri. I moved my beautiful family out here from California 3 years ago. I've been married for 16 years. I got 5 kids. 3 of my 3 girls are here. The 2 boys are at soccer practice right now. And I want to run for city council for Aldermen because I love this town. I've come from California. I've seen what happens I'm from a small town in Northern California. I've seen what happens in small towns when you don't have people in leadership that care about the town and care about what happens to the future generations. And I want to be a part of that. If I can play a role in that, I would love my children to grow up here. I want my grandkids to grow up here. I love this town. Proverbs 13, chapter 13 says, a righteous man leaves an inheritance to his children and his children's children. And I view this town as an inheritance, as a blessing that I know you guys appreciate it, but I'm telling you, there are worse places in the world, and this is something that we should protect, what we have here. I'm also a deacon at First Baptist Willow Springs. I'm actually on the Chamber of Commerce board in Mountain Grove. So I have a lot of experience. I've been running retail stores for 10 years. I ran big boxes for Lowe's out in California. I have the business acumen to bring to the table. I've had to balance P&Ls for my whole career in retail. And I run 2, I would like to call successful businesses right now. And that's why I'm here. Not to compete with Brian or do anything like that, just because we should have people on city council that care and have the chops to do it. So that's not to brag about myself. That's just to say I do bring some experience to the table with that. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we are going to open it up to questions from the audience. And we're going to be taking questions for the school board candidates and for the city government candidates simultaneously. So does anyone have a question? I'd like to start us off. Does anyone have a question on the index group? Mr. Bailey.
I have a question, and it's a very specific question. I don't want generalities. What I want to ask every candidate is, what is the one most important thing that you think needs to be accomplished in your candidacy? One thing, not a rambling thing I want to like that. So that's my question. What's important?
Okay. I think that's a question for both city and school board candidates, and we will start with city candidates. Ryan, please, 1 minute, sir.
Well, Wendell, for me, I think it's going to be listening to the citizens. That's what's going to be important to me, is to communicate with them and to communicate with the city employees here. When I was working here, it didn't happen a lot, but sometimes an alderman would come by the PD, or I would run into them in town, or even give me a call. And that really made me feel like they were really interested in what's going on in my department. And I want to do that as well as an alderman. So.
Thank you. Kim, 1 minute, please.
I would say I would like to provide a continuation. We have some really good things in the works, development for jobs, for housing, and I would like to stay in place to be able to follow through with those things.
Thank you. Luke, 1 minute.
Most important thing for me, Wendell, would be the financial side, ensuring that the budget is balanced, but also that we're doing things to bring people into Willow Springs to produce income in whatever way that we can, and just being fiscally responsible, not overspending where we shouldn't overspend, because in reality, we have to protect our bottom line, and that would be my most important thing.
Thank you. We're going to throw that same question over to the school board candidates. Roger, you have the first answer. 1 minute.
Yeah, there's probably two things, Wendell. The first thing would be the budget. We've got to work within our means at the school. We've got to balance that, but we also need to keep and retain good quality teachers. Without those, we don't have a district to help the students out. And that pretty much covers that.
Thank you. Lori, 1 minute.
I think my main focus, as Roger said, there are multiple focus areas that need to be addressed with the school board, but mine is really advocacy for the students. You know, our students are a high percentage of them, greater than 50%, that are not proficient in the basic reading, math, and other academics. And we need those students to be more proficient. So I really think, and that's supported by the budget, that's supported by great teachers, but it really is the student outcome that I'm really focused on to make sure that they have the most opportunities to succeed.
Thank you. Megan, 1 minute.
Mine also is the students, to make sure that we are putting them first. By that also, as Lori said, is making sure that we have the means to provide an education for them and making sure that we have the proper staff. Not just teachers, but we need to make sure that staff as a whole, that we are providing proper nutrition for them, that we are providing safe space for them, and making sure that they can become productive members of society as well.
Thank you so much. Okay, with that, I'm going to throw it back out to the audience. Does anyone else have a question that they'd like to ask aloud at this time? Any index cards for me to pick up right now? That is okay. I am prepared, and I'll remind everybody who's watching on the live stream that we'll be taking questions from the live stream continuously throughout the event. So I'm going to go with the question, the only question that was submitted in advance for the city candidates, from an individual who is employed in Willow Springs but does not reside here, and the question is this: with the increasing mistrust in government overall, how will you work to prevent that from happening in Willow Springs? Luke, you have the first answer of this question.
Okay. Would you be able to repeat it again for me?
Absolutely. With the increasing mistrust in government overall, how will you work to prevent that from happening in Willow Springs?
I mean, first of all, always operating from the standpoint of what is best for the people of Willow Springs, what is best for our town. And then on top of that, communicating, right? Communicating what we're doing, why we're doing it, being open to questions from the community so that because a lot of times mistrust comes from just lack of communication and there being maybe not a pipeline for communication to happen. So just keeping communication open and being open about the interests of the community and seeking to put them first above everything.
Thank you. Kim, 1 minute.
I would say transparency would be the key. I mean, that's a catchphrase, I guess, maybe not a good one, but involved in that would be always following the sunshine law all the time, every time, to make sure you're always operating above board. The other things would be talking to people in the grocery store. As he said, being transparent. If somebody asks me a question, I'm going to find the answer. And I think those kinds of things, positive public relations and just being available and open to the community we serve, is how we would do that.
Thank you. Brian, 1 minute.
Transparency, of course, is very important. There doesn't need to be any secrets. But as I was saying earlier, You know, I want to, I want to sit down, I'll sit down and talk city politics with anybody that wants to talk. So I think that's going to be the key thing, is communication and just having an open dialogue with the citizens.
Thank you. Okay, we are gonna throw it back to the school board candidates. The question is submitted in advance from Tyler Morris, who is a resident of Willow Springs. And the question is this: how do they plan to maintain a high quality level of education for students despite the increasing strain on teachers due to higher student counts per classroom? Lori, you have the first answer. You have 1 minute.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And if you look at the statistics around the area, we actually have currently a 14-to-1 student to teacher ratio, which that's really not a bad student to teacher ratio. That's actually lower than several of the other area schools. Now that creates another issue from a budgetary perspective where you may be overspending per pupil, and we are overspending per pupil in our particular school district compared to, say, a Mountain Grove that has a lower, has a higher teacher to student ratio and has a lower spending per pupil. But that doesn't really address the issues that teachers are unhappy for various reasons. I would say that I've heard from various teachers about their dissatisfaction. There's been a lot of discussion around the hybrid school schedule. That's been a very big focus. It's been discussed a lot. That is not what I'm hearing specifically is the only reason that teachers are not satisfied. But I do think as the board, part of our responsibility is to...
It's your time.
That's okay.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Megan, you have the same question. 1 minute.
Can you repeat the question again?
Absolutely.
I'm so sorry.
How do they plan to maintain a high quality level of education for students despite the increasing strain on teachers due to higher student counts per classroom?
My answer to that also is the same as Laura's, that we do have a smaller teacher per student ratio than a lot of the other districts. We also have seen that a lot of our students have, I can't say a lot, that's a stretch, sorry. Several of our students have left the district homebound, homeschool, or virtual. So it's hard to say how that's truly going to strain. I think that something that would be worth encouraging is working together in groups as teachers to try to reduce some of that strain and that stress.
Thank you. Roger, 1 minute. Do you want me to repeat it?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Well, just like the rest of them said, the teacher-to-student ratio is not that high. It used to be a lot higher when I went to school here, and we still turned out quality, high expectations from our students. We need to make sure that our teachers are happy in the classroom. You have to have somebody that is satisfied with their job to do their best job teaching. Somebody that feels appreciated, and you get better results that way. And you just have to have an open dialogue back and forth. And that is the main thing, to just channel communication.
Thank you. Okay. Any questions from the audience at this time? I will keep asking, so if something occurs to you, don't be shy. Okay, we are going to go with a question from our newsroom to the candidates for City Council, and it is this. Would you be in favor of creating or sponsoring from the city a community improvement district for downtown? Kim, do you have the first answer to that question? 1 minute.
Well, I suppose it would, what does that entail? I mean, how much money are we talking about? How much time? What parameters are we talking about? But in theory, absolutely, we need to do more to help downtown and come together as a community. I think there are some things in the works for that that I look forward to seeing soon.
Thank you. Brian, 1 minute.
Would you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. Would you be in favor of creating or sponsoring from the city a community improvement district, a CID, for downtown?
Yes, but I'd have to agree with Kim. I mean, I'd have to know, I'd have to have more information. But yeah, I genuinely, I think I would be.
Thank you very much. Lou?
Not to copy their answers, but I would want to know details about the financials and how, how much money is it going to require? What's the potential risks and rewards? Excuse me. But the idea of improving downtown, improving the square is a great idea. And I think, a town is often known by, when people drive in, what is the square, what does the main street feel like? I think that would be a great idea, assuming all the financials play out.
We're going to go with a question that has been submitted via the live stream from Marlena Parker, and it is, of course, for the school board candidates. It is this: how will your position on the board help to not promote continued nepotism that seems to continue to expand? And Megan, you have the first answer of that question. 1 minute.
Great, thank you for that. One thing that I think is going to be extremely important is for the board to be open for all staff to communicate with them. Not saying that they're not now, but there needs to be something in place to where they can communicate their dissatisfaction, to communicate their concerns, whether it be with their own self, with the students, with administration, whoever. There needs to be a good, transparent, open line of communication there. I also would very much love to see some type of anonymous survey or something put in place where the board is more aware of situations that are going on that they may not be aware of at the moment, but where they can stay anonymous if they wish to.
Thank you. Roger, you have the next answer of that question. 1 minute, sir.
Nepotism is a big thing in every industry that you look at. One thing about it, you are going to have to look at who is the highest qualified for the job when you're looking for teachers. And it's very hard when you have two people that have the same qualifications and it's somebody it's hard not to go ahead and go with that person. We need to make sure that we are looking for the highest qualified person. So.
Thank you. Lori, 1 minute.
Yeah, I think the same as Roger. I mean, when you're looking at qualified candidates, you are looking at what skills that they bring and what the job requirement that they're actually applying for. And so we need to just make sure that, through the superintendent, the board is responsible for the superintendent, the policies, the advocacy. The superintendent is responsible for the administration, but as the board, we can make sure that the policies for hiring individuals and for the way we select positions are consistently executed. And I think that's what our responsibility of the board should be, to further reduce any of that perception.
Thank you. Okay. Any questions at this time? All right. I am prepared. This is going to be another question from our newsroom for the city council candidates, or for all the city candidates for both mayor and city council. It's a two-part question, so you'll have 2 minutes to answer it if you choose. The question is this: for all city candidates, what is the best thing the city of Willow Springs has done this year? Second part: what is the decision that's been made where you might have voted differently? Glenn, you get the first answer of that question. 2 minutes.
On me?
Yes.
Because I am a little invested in the police department. I do like the fact that we have more officers now working around the clock. I know it's hard to keep people, but when we can get them, it's nice to have the extra officers around. What was the second part of the question? I'm sorry.
What is the decision that has been made where you might have voted differently?
Okay. I don't have anything.
Thank you. Okay, Luke.
Yeah.
2 minutes.
So I also agree with Brian. Adding police officers has been probably the best thing. And in terms of what I would have voted differently on, I don't actually think I have an answer for something that I would have done differently.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
The things in recent history that we've done that I have been, of which I've been the most proud, would be our partnership with the Community Foundation. so they could restore the McClellan Building. It's a wonderful project. See Dean if you ever want to tour. It's amazing. The other would be our gift of the MoDOT buildings to the school. That allowed, through some really bad circumstances when District 9 left, and then many years of agony when the city had those buildings and couldn't seem to find a good answer. I think it was just a real blessing for us to be able to give them to the school district, considering that the district, operates on the lowest tax levy in the, allowable in the state. Those kinds of buildings would not be constructed otherwise. So, and I stand by the votes that I've made. So,
Thank you. All right. For the school board candidates, this is a question submitted in advance from Bill Alternate. Roger, you're going to have the first answer to this question. There have been 21 staff members resign this school year so far. Are you concerned with the number of people that have resigned? And what are some things the district can do to attract and retain the best possible staff for our students? One answer.
Well, with that number, I am a little concerned. You are, with this size of a workforce, and that's what teachers are, and they're part of the workforce, you're going to have turnover. I know there are some that are retired, some that their spouses have taken jobs out of the area and they moved with them. But we need to be doing some exit interviews with the teachers, finding out what the ones that are dissatisfied and leaving. We need to find out why they're leaving and what we can do to address whatever situation it is. As far as attracting new teachers, I think we just need to promote this area. It's a beautiful area to live and a great place to raise a family. And it's always been a good school district, and we can continue that tradition.
Thank you. Lori, 1 minute.
Yeah, I agree with Roger on the exit interviews, but I do think that the exit interviews are a little past the point of trying to figure out what the actual issue is with why those individuals are leaving or retiring. I mean, you're going to have attrition when you have a school district, and you're going to have retirements. But I think there's an opportunity to do some, what I would consider like cultural assessments or surveys amongst the staff, the educators, even the board could participate in it. To figure out like what is it that people are unhappy with. I mean, there's lots of things that when you hire people and retaining them, there's pay, there's hours, there's also the student involvement, there's disciplinary actions that impact how a teacher feels about their whole entire ecosystem. And so we really need to get to the root cause of what's causing that ahead of time before they leave, and then try to figure out, how do we change the culture of that?
Megan, 1 minute.
I really answered this question last time, but the exit interviews are definitely important. As Lori said, that is a little behind the curve on that. So doing some type of anonymous survey, being present in the school whenever possible, being an open line of communication with all staff members and students alike, so that they feel like they have a voice and that voice can be taken somewhere else. I think it's really important to have a very good cohesive unit, and so I think our faculty and our administration need to feel very cohesive, and our staff members need to feel supported. And if they're not feeling supported, then why? And what can we do to correct that?
Thank you. Okay, back to the candidates for city. This is another question from our newsroom. I think you'll have the first answer. Regarding the impending viaduct project, what can we as a town do to represent our interests to MoDOT and to the railroad? One answer.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Yes. Regarding the upcoming viaduct project, the Highway 137 bridge, what can we as a town do to represent our interests to MoDOT and to the railroad?
I think it comes down to standing up for yourself. If standing up for the town, because they're gonna, it's MoDOT, so they're going to try to impose their will. Not that they're gonna be overly forceful about it, but it is our job to protect the city, protect the people, and make the best decision for the citizens. And we just need to stand up for ourselves, and in the conversation, not back down just because it's MoDOT.
Kim, 1 minute.
I mean, obviously, we need to have a strong presence when there is a public forum. We need to have a strong presence of everybody on council, everybody we possibly can, and express any concerns we have with the project. We don't have final plans. A lot of this is a little bit premature at this time.
Thank you. Brian.
Definitely input. We need to put our voices out there, but we need to have citizens involved in that too. We need their thoughts on that as well.
Moving back to the candidates for school district, this is a question submitted from the live stream from Jill Henley. What are your views on the block scheduling vis-a-vis the yearly schedule? And Lori, you have the first answer to this question. 1 minute.
Yeah, it's been a lot of discussion. I think I've been at every school board, every forum that the conversation has been at. I think I've expressed my thoughts that there needs to be a more formal plan and approach, because you can't be both on block scheduling and try to do a hybrid schedule, because we would be the only school in the whole entire state doing that. And as I've said, and I think you quoted me in the newspaper, we don't want to be an experiment on those types of things and bleeding edge. So I do think there is need to look at it. We have to look at the reasons that are drawing some teachers away to other school districts, which would be the hybrid scheduling or the 4-day scheduling. This year was not the right time to do that, but now is the time to start thinking about it for the next calendar year.
Thank you. Megan, 1 minute.
I believe that if the goal is to go to a hybrid schedule, that block scheduling needs to change. We're doing a huge disservice to our students if we continue with block scheduling and do a hybrid, because if they miss on a Thursday, they won't have that class again until Tuesday. I think that's a big disservice, especially when our numbers are not exactly where we want them to be anyway. So if we're going to go to a hybrid, and I agree with Lori here that if that is a plan, it needs to be starting in the process now. Start working on it, give it a year, give it a good time to get all the kinks worked out before you roll it out.
Thank you. Roger, 1 minute, sir.
Well, like them, I am not a fan of block scheduling. My youngest daughter was sick for 2 or 3 days this last semester. She basically missed a week of school, and it's very hard for them to catch up on that. And if the 4-day calendar is adopted, it is going to be very difficult to use block scheduling in that. And we would be the only school in the state of Missouri doing that. And like they said, we don't want to be an experiment. We don't want to try it and the first year and say, oops, we made a mistake, because we've lost a year with the students. I know some school districts that have went to the 4-day. They took a year to a year and a half of discussion and planning before they ever took the step to go into it. So that's something that we need to consider and look at. Thank you.
This time I'll ask if there are any index cards that need to be collected. Right, a question for us? Yes, please go ahead.
It's for the school board. So it's kind of been off the controversy of the calendar. The phones was a very controversial decision, and there was a lot of controversy listening to the student representative and the parents. Any opinions or thoughts on that?
Megan, it's your turn to answer first. 1 minute.
On the phones,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that the students should feel that they can represent themselves. I feel like they need to go to their student representative and have a voice. However, I will say from staff that I have talked to, and some students even, that they have been very pleased with not having their phones, and they're more social with each other, more face-to-face. I think we're putting the humanity back into it, whereas you're not talking through a screen. And so I think our bullying, if we continue, hopefully will continue to decrease. I don't think they belong in the classroom during instruction time for sure, and I just want to see our kids continuing to be social with each other face-to-face.
Roger, 1 minute.
Well, I think Dr. Johnson in the middle school do an excellent job with that. The kids do bring their cell phones to school. They're turned off and put in their backpacks so they can access them in an emergency or after school. That's the way our daughter does it. There doesn't seem to be an issue. When you get out of school and you're at a job, you can't have your phone in your hand or using it all the time. So that's something that just needs to prepare you for later on.
I do think the role of the student representative is really important, and hearing what they have to say. I have high schoolers. I heard about it for a week, about the school policy on the no phones and the pouches and how it's working, how it's not working. I still hear that it's sometimes the kids have them out, sometimes the teacher says it's okay, sometimes it's not okay. So again, if you're going to have a policy, we have to make sure that we're enforcing the policy. The hardest thing of a policy is to enforce it. And so the students did provide their feedback, but as they said, you don't get to go to work and get your phone out and look on it. And in education, I think that there are opportunities where a phone could be useful, but the majority of them, it's probably not. So I do support the decision the school board made. It was very difficult to make that decision. And it was very difficult on the students because it's like one day you get something and the next day you don't. So, but it is something that was very much needed, I think.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience for Snyder? Index cards.
I have a question. When I want to make a comment on, I am a teacher at Willow, and I do want to make a comment that I feel like a lot of our board members don't understand about block versus traditional. And I'm not going to say I'm for or against it because I think you can argue the pros and cons every single day. But Roger, you were talking about Savannah being absent, and then we have a student absent on traditional schedule. They're missing 7 classes in one day. Whereas on block schedule, they're missing 4 classes in one day. So if somebody's gone, they have 7 classes to make up, whereas on block they have 4, even though it's every other day. So my question is not about that, but I just wanted to make that comment because I feel like a lot of the community doesn't quite understand that when we're talking block traditional. But my question is, a lot of board decisions and things that go into board members obviously don't have a background in education. And I don't feel like a lot of board members understand the day-to-day necessarily of what teachers do and how standards work. So my question to you is, how much would you be willing to learn and advocate for state standards, to be like going to Destiny, to advocating for our school, advocating for rural schools? So that's my question to you is, are you willing to learn what we teach day in and day out? Are you willing to learn the standards? Are you willing to learn what it is like in the classroom for us before making decisions on what we do? Because it is hard to have somebody making decisions on what we do day to day but not understanding the job. So that's my question. And I do want to say before you answer, thank you for your willingness to represent our school. Okay.
Yep. As far as, I appreciate your comment on the block scheduling and the traditional, but yes, you do have, if you miss 2 days, the next day you do have all 7 of those
There's
classes.
definitely pros and cons.
There is, and I agree with that. I think the board members need to spend more time going around to the classes. I know I talked to Adam Webb whenever he was on there. He said he was going around and visiting some of the teachers. I think that needs to happen and set him on some classes. My wife and I have a office here in town. I'm available to go and do that every once in a while, and that's something you have to do. Because I've taught Sunday school classes with kids. I know what it is to deal with kids, and that's just one day a week, 1 hour a week. So I know you have a very, very difficult job, and it's different than what it used to be than when I was a kid. So yes, we do need to spend time going and talking to the teachers, finding out what they need and what we can do to help.
Thank you. All right, Lynette.
Yeah, to address your question, absolutely. I'm available to come up and sit and learn what you guys do. I think it's important as a board member to understand what the standards are, what you're being expected to do. There's been lots of things that I've heard. They have a lot of push down type of requirements on the teachers, and you have limited time to teach. So we have to figure out what is creating that extra burden on the teachers, and that reduces the amount of time that you actually have for educational purposes. So yes, I do run the pizza place, but I have flexibility to come over, and I can go in the middle of the afternoon because I have a great team. So I'm happy to come over and spend that time with you. I have a certification in change management as well. So therefore I may not be a traditional educator, but I have taught many educational sessions on things like that. And I think that's important as well, to learn from your perspective. Yeah.
Thank you. Megan, 1 minute.
I do not have a background in education. However, I have 3 sisters that are all teachers, and 2 of them opened their own school. I have a certification in early childhood and had my own daycare and preschool. And so I can sympathize with a lot of what you do in a sense. And I believe that the best thing to do is to be open to coming and sitting in a classroom whenever someone's available. I'll make myself available as much as I possibly can. I do work in West Plains. However, I have a little bit of flexibility in my schedule where I'll be happy to come and sit in a classroom. I'll be happy to learn whatever it is that I need to learn, the standards, find out what we can do to help make your guys' job a little bit easier as much as we can from our seat. You know, obviously we can't do administration's job, but we need to make sure that we are supporting the administration, supporting the students and the staff, but also making sure that we are doing whatever we can for you all on the front lines of it.
Thank you. Additional questions from the room? From our newsroom for the city council candidate, or for the city candidates, how much time do you spend using amenities in town like the golf course, parks, and pool? If a citizen came to you with concerns, would you have firsthand knowledge of these city features? And Kim, you have the first answer. 1 minute, please.
No, I do not golf. I have been to the golf course, but I do not golf. My children are grown, so I don't swing at the park anymore like I used to. I do walk at Booster once in a while. Other amenities, I don't fly. But in all of those things, I don't know it all. I don't have all the answers. I never will. My job, I feel, is to get to the people who are smart about it and learn from them and gain the information so I can make a good decision.
Brian, 1 minute, sir.
I'm not a golfer either, but I would like to be. I'd like to go. When my boys were younger, we were involved in the Star Theater back then. That was a lot of fun. Of course, they grew up, and I haven't continued that, but I love everything that the city here has to offer. I'm going to continue that.
1 minute, sir.
I would, like Brian, wish I had time to golf. We do go to the pool quite a bit in the summer. That's been a lot of fun for myself and the family. So to answer your question, yes, I would be happy to answer questions and talk about those things. And similar to what Kim said, in my whole career, I've been in a position of leadership over a business, and I don't know every little thing that goes on, but I know who to go talk to. And so I would employ that same strategy. Go find who is the expert. What is their day-to-day like? What are their problems? What are the things that are going well? And then work from there. Most of the time, you'll find everyone wants to do a great job. So talking to them, finding out how it can be better, what are the problems, and then just working towards a solution would be my strategy.
Thank you. Questions from the room? All right. For the school board candidates submitted in advance from Tyler Morris, what steps will you take to ensure that students receive high-quality school meals that are free from harmful ingredients? Lori, you have the first answer to this question.
Well, owning a pizza restaurant and having worked for a pharmaceutical company for 18 of my professional years, there's nothing worse than our food supply. Honestly, if you don't read the label, there's no telling what you'll be eating. Like the creamy Italian that had plastic in it, we got rid of it, made our own, and now it doesn't have those ingredients in it. So, there's 9 major allergens on the food list out there. I think as part of this role as advocacy, it's also our responsibility to work with the superintendent and the rest of the board and the school folks that are purchasing. Some of the food they get through government contracts, and they get what they get from those. And hopefully there's some changes that we'll see, and maybe some of the new administration that wants to take out some of the red dye and the other really harmful things. In Europe, the food supply is not like this. In America, we're the only ones killing ourselves with the food, and unfortunately, we're doing it with our children. So, sorry.
Megan, 1 minute, please.
I agree with what Lori has said. I think that we need to work closely with the buyers to make sure that we're getting quality ingredients for our kids. I think it's really important to keep the grant, if at all possible, that provides fruits and vegetables to our kids. I would like to see that expanded into the high school as well, if at all possible, and continuing to try to buy locally. You know, buying our meat local, I think, is really important, because then they have a little bit of an investment as well. And so I think that's going to go a little further.
Gotcha, 1 minute.
Well, I agree with what both of them said entirely. We do have a good food staff that works there. They have most of them have children in the system. They're going to make sure that the food is high quality. And I agree that local produced food would be a lot better. We can make it known that donated beef is a tax deduction for the farmer, so we could get a little bit more of that away. We wouldn't be purchasing that. And there are just some things like that we could do to make sure that it stays healthy and safe.
Thank you. Okay, questions from the room? For the city candidates from our newsroom, what is the #1 safety concern in Willow Springs? Brian, you have the first answer to that question. 1 minute, sir.
I know there's been a lot of discussion at the council meetings on the parking downtown, more parking. I do think that people that park on the corner, I think that is dangerous. Just needs to, and I don't know what the answer is. I know we got to keep parking, for the people there. So I don't know. That'd be something to look at, talk about. Obviously, there's. We've got guys out here, electric guys out working on the electric lines. I mean, of course, it can be dangerous. The main thing in the police department, the fire department, the main thing I think is just to make sure that as the city, we provide as much safety equipment as we can and training and so forth.
Luke, 1 minute.
I was also going to say the parking downtown. I know that that's been something that's been discussed, especially now that, it seems busier down the main road. And I know when I'm driving, it just seems like there's going to be someone darting out at any minute. So just keeping that in mind, as well as the police department. But I don't think that's our biggest issue. I do think it's just parking downtown and just this strip right here.
Yeah, 1 minute.
I guess I'm technical enough, I would ask for clarification. Are we talking about safety for the general public, or are we talking about safety for our city employees? Because those are somewhat different things. We have made some really good improvements on officer safety in the police department, with increasing the number of guys on per shift, with making sure our ballistic vests are in date instead of expired. On the other hand, we need to get caught up like that for the fire department as well. We will be having to spend quite a bit of money upcoming to get the fire department where it needs to be as well. So, and then so that's on the city side, but on the public safety side, again, yes, the parking situation, the traffic situation downtown. Obviously, it would be great to have more sidewalks, better sidewalks, make things more walkable, like especially up around by the school and all of those sorts of things. But that's expensive. It takes long-term planning, long-term budgeting.
Thank you. Bringing it back to the school board candidates, this is another question from Bill Aldermen. Megan, you'll have the first answer. With the current financial woes of the school district, what are some of the ideas that you have to resolve the deficit spending in the district? 1 minute.
This is a tough one. The biggest thing is looking at our personnel, being as efficient as we possibly can be, seeing where we might be overspending, where we can group things together. And I'll just use an example. You know, we don't need an assistant for an assistant. Not saying that we do, but it would be really wise to look at all the positions and see where can we fix that? Where can we become more efficient? Where can we make cuts, but not have our students or really our staff suffer? You know, our frontline teachers, the ones that are, you know, doing the day to day. What can we do to help them, but also not let them suffer, but be within budget?
Thank you. Roger, 1 minute, sir.
Don't, just like Megan said, we're going to have to be efficient. We're going to have to watch where we spend our money and what decisions we make for future purchases or anything like that. There are also other options out there. There are private corporations that do have grants that you can apply for. Federal funding, we don't know. That's kind of up in the air. With the education department probably going to be closed down and shipped back to the state, the more focus is going to be on the state. So we'll hopefully have a little bit more say on where the money gets sent to and how it's spent. So.
All right, 1 minute.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really important is to really dive into the financial statement with the administration and the board. I know that was on the docket this last time, and they said they were going to revisit it in April. So I recently downloaded the 44 pages of the budget and all of the line items, because that was the question asked of me when we were at the pasta place to, you know, what's the budget, what's the current spending. You got to dig in to look at it. You got to look at it financially across the board. Where's the spending? Where's the majority of the spending going? And does that line up with the current student population in each of the grade levels? We have a varying amounts of student. We've lost about 20 or 30 out of the junior class. That's a big deal. We're losing a lot of students coming into the kindergarten class, and so we also need to see where else we're spending money. So I think part of my responsibility is the budget and meeting with Dr. Spence and the rest of the board to really understand where are we spending and how do we address that.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Open that to the room. Okay. So this is my last question to all of the city candidates. I'm going to have one final one is for our mayoral candidates. But for the candidates for the city, what is one concrete way outside of meetings you see yourself promoting the interests of Willow Springs? Who can first answer this question?
Promoting the interests of Willow Springs, like in public life or
In public life, in economic development, in business development,
and is this what I would do or currently doing?
it's what you would do outside of meetings.
Okay. I think Willow Springs is poised. We're right in between West Plains and Mountain Grove, and I think we're poised to have some sort of draw for kids' sports, maybe a park or something. I've talked to Dean a little bit about that. I think that is really a good strategy. In terms of promoting Willow Springs' interests in other ways, supporting sports, coaching. I've coached on some of the YMCA teams for the kids. Just being available in public, like Kim said, when I'm at the grocery store, being available, I love talking to people. So just things like that.
Thank you very much. Kim, 1 minute, please.
I mean, I think that is a good question, because the reality is a lot of what we do is not in the meeting. We have a meeting once a month, but those of us who are active try to be engaged more than that. I would say at least once a week, I visit with somebody about a business opportunity or this or that, or what we can do for the community. Again, I think it's just being open and talking to people and trying to figure out, if this person wants to do this, how can we help? It's not a black and white answer. There's not one answer that's going to fit every scenario. One person needs one thing and another person needs something else. You just have to be able to communicate with them and be able to figure out how the city can help meet their needs.
Thank you. Ryan, 1 minute, please.
Probably just being involved in community projects as they come up, but also really anything involving our youth. That's our future. That's what we really need to focus on. So any projects involving youth, for sure.
On the topic of the youth, I have a few more questions submitted in advance from the school board. I will open it up to the room. For the school board candidates from Tyler Morris submitted in advance, will they conform to outside pressure, whether from the state or federal government or even external NGOs, to implement LGBTQ policies? What about CRT, which has been pushed into some schools? Roger, you have the first answer to this question.
Well, I can say absolutely not on my part. I am a Christian conservative, and I believe that kind of fits the values of most people in this community, and it wouldn't be accepted in this area. So, kind of short and sweet on that. But
I'll take it. Lori, 1 minute, please.
I just don't personally think that's the type of things that we should be communicating or setting policy and being forced down from the governments, the various government, into the school systems. I do not think that we should be tolerating any bullying or anything else towards different people that have different backgrounds than anybody else in this particular area. But I don't think it should be put into the school systems to use as part of the education. That is not what our school systems are to educate. That is a parent responsibility to provide that descriptions or explanations to their children.
Thank you. Megan, 1 minute.
I also agree. I don't think that it's bullying is tolerated in any capacity. I think that we need to stop that. I think our school has done a very good job of trying to keep it from being an agenda. But I think that those that are choosing to live that way need to have somebody that they can go to and discuss things with, like a counselor or somebody. But I don't think that it needs to be for everybody. I think, yes, it should be discussed in the home, and that they need to know that they have support and that they won't be bullied for it, but I don't think it needs to be pushed into the classroom.
Very good. Okay, and this is our final question for the city council candidates. It's actually just for our sole mayoral candidate who is here. It's from our newsroom. Kim, you have said that you're running to provide continuity in the Willow Springs government. Can you elaborate on why the city would benefit from the course that it's currently on? What are you doing right?
What are we doing right? I think we're doing a lot of things right. Our budget is in good shape. We've made good decisions financially. We are doing a lot of things, I believe, to foster economic growth. Continuity, my statement on that is pure nuts and bolts. We will have 3 new members of council. We have 1 alderman who's been on less than a year. My point on leadership is it would be easier to have a leader who understands the direction, how to run a meeting, what we need to do. We do this every year. This is an annual thing that we approve, that kind of thing. Just the basics of getting through a meeting would be helpful to have somebody who's been at more than a handful of council meetings.
Thank you very much. Our remaining questions are for the school board candidates, unless there are anything in the room. No worries. This one is also from Bill Alternate, and where you'll have the first answer. With the substantial decrease in student enrollment in the school district and the budget shortfall, what are some areas of spending that you are looking at cutting? For example, administrators, teachers, or programs. 1 minute.
I think I talked about this briefly when I talked about the budget a while ago. I think there's a lot of granularity that needs to be looked at from a budget perspective. As I mentioned, we've lost a lot of students out of the junior class, but You have teachers in high school that teach all age groups of the students in there. So you can't just say, I'm going to cut this section of the student or the teachers or administrators. I do think we have to look at the budget, and we have to look at the staffing, and we have to look at where the students are coming into those classes and whether we have the right size for those. We have to look at the other spending, how much we're spending. The CTE building is fabulous, by the way, and what they've done over there is amazing. But we also have to look at the budgetary demands that is putting on the school district as a whole. So I can't give a specific because I have not spent enough time in the details and looking at every single administrative activity to have an opinion, but I would shortly thereafter once we got on the school board.
Thank you. And 1 minute, please.
That would take diving into all the financial situation, the budget, finding where we are overspending, trying to correct that, and to talk about what's coming, open enrollment, the student choice. What are we going to do to get more students into our area? And if we can do that, then our budget will go up. And we can find those areas, hopefully, fine tune those. I don't want to see anybody lose their job, but there are going to have to be cuts somewhere. And we just have to find the best places for those. And that is just diving in, as Lori said, going line by line, finding out why are we spending this? Why do we have this position? Where can we create a little bit more wiggle room to provide in areas that we are not providing for but need that support, and just going through it.
Well, we're going to have to go through the line by line through the budget, just like they said. And Dr. Spence brought up a good point at the last board meeting. He said through attrition, we're going to, when teachers retire, until we get the budget under control, we're going to not replace some of the teachers. I mean, there are some that are irreplaceable basically, but we'll have to hire. But we're going to have to be very careful on that. But we're going to have to watch all of our spending. It's just, I think we're down to 64 seniors now. That is a very low number for this community. And they're going online, so we lose funds that way. And we need to figure out a way to bring them back into the classroom so they can get the best education. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, that concludes all of our submitted questions. Last chance for any from the room. No worries. Okay, we're going to move into closing statements. City candidates, you will begin, and we're going to go in reverse order from the opening statement. So Luke, you have 2 minutes to close.
Okay, so my closing statement is that this is a beautiful town. It's something to be protected and preserved. And the reason I'm running is to do that thing and work with Kim or work with whoever is the mayor, work with the city council, and preserve and strengthen this town so that future generations can enjoy it just like we do.
Brian, 2 minutes to close, please.
Well, if elected, I certainly, I am retired, so I do have time to devote to city matters, and I will do that. I think, this is a great town, and, my grandchildren go to school here, and I just want to, make sure they have a bright future ahead of them.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Kim, 2 minutes to close, please.
I talked a little bit earlier about economic development, but with economic development, with community development of any sort, I believe strongly that we are better together. If we all come to the table, we set ourselves aside, any axes that we have to grind, if we leave those at the door, come to the table bringing the very best that we can, that's when we're best as a community. I believe that our best is yet to come for the community of Willow Springs. I think we will see continued growth at the South Junction. I hope that we see some revitalization downtown as well. I just believe, I think we will see additional jobs. I think we also will see additional housing, all in the near term. I just would like to be here to be able to provide that cooperative style of leadership to take us to the next level.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The school board candidates were again going to go in reverse order. Lori, first 2 minutes, your closing statements, please.
Yeah, so thanks to everybody for coming in the Howell County News for putting this on today. And so the reason, I really want to be part of the school board is I feel like that with my diverse background, with my experience both outside of Willow and here, that I would be a great candidate to bring that also from a leadership perspective, from a budgetary aspect, and from an advocacy. That's really the board's responsibility, and I feel like I could represent Willow in that atmosphere. My kids did not actually graduate from Willow Springs High School, which is not a bad thing because my daughter graduated from Indiana, from a high school in Indiana that actually had open school choice. And so I saw that district rise to the occasion and decide that they were going to find a way to be better than everybody else to attract more students to this area. And I think Willow has a great opportunity that we could do that because we've got great educators. We've got people that have devoted their time and want to be here. And as Luke said, what a hub. You sit in between Kabul, Mountain View, Mountain Grove, West Plains, Houston, and Kabul. And so what better way to attract students to this area and families by creating a stellar educational opportunity for them. So that's the vision that I think that I can help bring to the school board at Willow if you vote for me.
Thank you. Roger, 2 minutes to close, please.
I want to thank you all for being here tonight, and I want to thank you for the questions we've got. And I just want to let you know that I'd be available for anybody to talk to at any time. I'm in town 5 days a week. If elected, I would be willing to go visit with the teachers, be in the classroom when available, and listen to what their concerns are, and be able to take that to the superintendent and talk to the public and what their concerns are. And I want to help the school to continue to turn out good students. I'm a product of Willow Springs. My wife is. I have 2 children that are currently in school now, and I want to make sure that the high standards of education, that we can improve on them and then continue at that. So, there you go.
Thank you. Megan, 2 minutes, please.
I also want to thank you all for coming, and thank you, Amanda, for putting this on. I know it was a lot of work. If elected, my goal is to be an advocate for the students, to be an advocate for the staff, and not solely just teachers, but any staff, our custodians, our food, nutrition department, anybody. I want to have that transparency with them, that open line of communication where they can come to me and they can feel like they're heard. And then my goal is to then go where I need to try to correct it, or do what I can to try to fix it for them so that they're happy, they're satisfied, they'll stay. We have excellent teachers at Willow, and I just want to see them stay. I want to see our kids continue to be loved on, because I have had so many teachers I've seen them, not just for my kids, but I've seen them come to ball games on their own time and love on the whole team. And they're not going to do that if they're not satisfied. And so we need to continue to work on that, improve that, try to retain teachers that are going to be kept at that same bar, and just put out quality kids. Quality educations, whether they decide to go to the workforce, whether they decide to go to the military or college, just making sure that they're prepared for that fully.
Thank you so much. Okay, so thank you all for being here, and let's give these candidates a round of applause. It's I'd like to thank our sponsors who made this a real fun and thank the Willow Springs Community Foundation who used beautiful community space. And again, thank you all for being here. Please get home safely tonight.
Anyway. But actually, I was close to you.
Good job, guys.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys. Absolutely.
Yeah. I remember that you guys did it.
So, yeah.
All of us.
Well, I don't know if I'm good, you know, good luck if you lose. Good luck if you lose.
I don't think